Welcome into the midweek edition of the Spot Track podcast. Brandon Kravitz here along with Mike Ginnitti. This episode presented by Bettor Edge with a brand new feature for all of you to enjoy. We all love the occasional parlay. Well, they have them pre-built in the app now. I was on an NL Central sweep yesterday. It didn't go my way, but still, you get the Guardians two-legger that's out there for the early window against the Baltimore Orioles. Usually some sort of theme, which is also a lot of fun to get into. It's a great way to get in on the action, and you can sign up for the first time. Get $20 on the house just by using the promo code SPOTTRACK. That's SPOTRAC. Use that at sign up over at bettoredge.com or on their mobile app. Right now, Mike, I am 50th among all Bettor Edge users in ROI over the past 7 days. So not bad when you consider there's about 30,000 or so people that use this app, but need to climb up that leaderboard. I need to get to number one. That's going to be my goal before football season. Let's see if baseball can get me there.
Well, if you're doing midweek NL Central work, I think you're well on your way, sir. Maybe time to put the mouse down a little bit.
Except the Rockies had their first shutout in like 200 games.
Yeah, that was a stat. I love that stuff. But yeah, let's breathe some new life into Major League Baseball this week, can we?
Yes. Well, hopefully they'll do it for us, but we'll try our best to impart some wisdom here. 7 days from now, we're going to be up against the trade deadline in Major League Baseball. It feels like the biggest decision any team has to make is the Arizona Diamondbacks and their all-star third baseman, Eugenio Suarez. Suarez, fourth in baseball with 36 home runs. What's the best move moving forward for Arizona? It feels like they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. An aging player here who's on fire, a team that's decent, struggling to get above 500, but the division they're in makes it nearly impossible to compete with where they're at. I just feel like they're kind of stuck in the middle here. I have no idea how they're going to go on this.
Yeah, my favorite part about the trade deadline for Major League Baseball specifically is we do all this work in like early June to try to project how things are going to go. And then sure as S, all the teams we think are going to be sellers go on a 6-week run and make everything complicated and complicates it for themselves. And now the sellers might be buyers or maybe standing pat. And Arizona's in that sort of fringe mode where they could absolutely hold and maybe add. But you're right. The division just seems too daunting. And I saw two great stats, or maybe two notes surrounding Suarez here over the past week. One is I think he'd be the player with the most home runs at the trade deadline to ever be traded. So he's well on his way to that. And number two is the most likely destination, not because of fit, but just to keep him away from the other contenders, is the Dodgers right now. That's what Vegas is saying should happen here, that the Dodgers should come swooping in and throw him either on the bench or platoon him with Muncy and some others just to keep him off of the big boys, the Cubs, the Yankees, etc., for the stretch run here. And who else would do that better than the Dodgers? So that's where my head is right now with Suarez.
I mean, is that a move? I don't know what the level to which the Diamondbacks-Dodgers rivalry reaches. Yeah. I don't live on the West Coast, but that certainly doesn't rise to Dodgers-Padres or Dodgers-Giants, but they're still in the same division. This probably shouldn't be something that happens.
But it's just a rental, right? Suarez is going to hit free agency after this. I don't think the Dodgers are going to pony up for Eugenio Suarez at 37 years old. So
they're just going to play keep away from the rest of the league.
Yeah. So and the Dodgers always have a prospect or two dangling out there. So if the price is right and Arizona can get better for the long term by making this short-term move, I don't think anybody's off the table, including the Dodgers right uptown.
You know, the Dodgers are an interesting one because they are trending right now to being one of the biggest disappointments that perhaps we've ever seen. This was the most surefire champion in all of major professional sports, and they do not look like the best team in baseball right now. Adding Suarez wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but this is a team that I wasn't thinking was going to need to buy at the deadline. But would they be in your need category? Teams that need to upgrade given where they're at and what their expectations are?
I mean, it's funny because we were expecting them to be historic, and that's the only reason that we're sort of disappointed. They have a 4.5 game lead in the West. They are the division leader right now. They could basically walk through another week and still be the leaders of that division. And yet the injuries for the second straight season have been piling up. The bats have been quiet, maybe sort of purposefully. Maybe they took the gas pedal off just a little bit here because they know how this thing works. Freddie Freeman got dinged up a little bit with a hit by pitch, so that's always cause for concern. You can just see that this is a team that probably needs a bolster, and a bat like Suarez, I'd put them in all three categories. They need a bat, they need a starter, and they probably need two relievers over the course of the next 7 days before this deadline expires. And I expect them to do it because they know exactly who they are. They know exactly what they need and what they don't have right now. And like I said, they're probably going to walk through this division over the next 2 months pretty easily. So they're going to be set up to make that run.
Just to put it into a frame of reference for how average the Dodgers have been lately, even though they lead arguably the best division in all of baseball, they've been 16-14 over the last 30 days. That's only 2 games better than the Chicago White Sox. So that's the issue, is that they're still good. They're just not good enough given what the expectations are for this team.
No question. And obviously the money is driving this conversation, right? This is the historic money payroll, the tax situation, the deferred compensation. They've got the targets on their back for a lot of reasons. But what's interesting is that going through this ridiculous, terrible stretch, and it's been bad. It's been right up there with some of the bad stretches that they've had. Ohtani's been legendary. So they've also got this positive storyline to go through with this past 6 games and his 5 home runs. And
he's back on the mound.
It just feels like they are dying for not just a pull out of this, but maybe a run, a serious run. And like I said, you put some fresh blood on this bench or this bullpen, and that might be all it takes to really kickstart this season. And August 1st is always, by the way, a signal to these teams that it's time to go and time to make the stretch run. So I'm not super worried about this team, even though you're right. They really kind of just buried themselves into the abyss for about a month.
I've heard a lot of folks saying that it's going to be the trade dud line. I've heard that line used pretty savvy.
Jeez.
We're not going to see a lot of seismic deals develop. Do you get the sense that that's true?
Yeah, look, a lot of the younger guys who were pending free agents and things like that did lock in before the off season, or maybe the first couple of weeks of the season. So the writing was on the wall for this. Now, we've had some players really kind of outkick their coverage, which makes them nice candidates here. But, if you go to maybe like the Athletic top trade deadline and you see some of the names of the top, even in the top 5, you're going to be underwhelmed without question. We just don't have those massive draws this year. And it's not likely that blockbuster players get moved in July anyway. So we can pretty much squash those ideas. Alex Bregman was never leaving Boston on July 31st, despite what could happen to him this offseason. They're one of those teams that's like Arizona in the fringe, but could easily make a big push here if they wanted to. I think the name that I've been reading recently for those teams that need an arm, and that's every team, Dylan Cease could be the one back in conversation here because that's financially driven. That could be more than a rental. That could be a situation where you talk about a trade and sign. And if it's one of these big boys that think they can do both at the same time in July, that's probably the big name to be watching over the course of the next couple of days here.
Last thing on this, and we're going to move on. We're going to get a lot of NFL stuff that I want to get to here. Is there a team that's dropped off recently that maybe within those last 30 days that we talk about has put themselves into this conversation that wasn't before? I look at a team like the Cardinals. We talk about the Diamondbacks. I guess you could throw them in the mix. The Texas Rangers.
Yep.
Maybe somebody in the AL East that felt like for most of the season they were going to be competitive in their division, but have now maybe have decided that waving the white flag and getting something for their guys would be the best move forward.
I'll give you 3 teams, and one might be a little bit hot stovey. You mentioned St. Louis. St. Louis should have been trading weeks ago. I know that they've been kind of holding themselves up on a lifeline at around 500, but they are nowhere near where they need to be, even for a wild card contention. And they've been passed by the Reds recently, who I think are a team on the serious rise. And I'd love to see that team get fun because I love their new manager, Terry Francona, and what he's done with other organizations just like this. So I think St. Louis should be selling hard right now. I think Texas is a buyer. So I'm going to keep them right there. I think they believe in themselves a little bit, and they think they've got the juice both on the mound and with the bats that can come alive at the right time. Minnesota has to sell, has to. And I know Byron Buxton came out at the All-Star break and said, I've got a no trade clause, so you can try, but I'm going to punch holes in it. If you find a fit for him, and maybe certainly they got the best reliever in Duran and a starter or two at the top of the list as well. that should be an uber aggressive sell team. And I'm going to give you one more. I think the Braves really should do something this July to get rid of some payroll, to maybe move on from one of these contracts that they jumped on early. It's not going to be a Riley, it's not going to be an Acuna Jr., but they've got some serious value contracts that I think they could turn into 2 or 3 prospects right now this week, which could really replenish them both from an asset standpoint and from a payroll standpoint over the course of the next 3 off seasons. So, they're kind of buried. The Marlins kind of flew past them in the standings, believe it or not, in the NL East. And obviously, Philly and the Mets are going to be a step above for the rest of this season. So look out for the Braves, because that could be a name player that moves that isn't on the list right now going forward.
It's pretty wild with Atlanta because they had such a bad start to the season, and it doesn't seem like they've fully recovered from that. So I like that look. NFL news. Let's talk about the Miami Dolphins. Tua says that he's working to regain trust with Tyreek Hill. An honest detail from the Dolphins quarterback, with Hill basically quitting on the team last year. Does this mean that we can silence any trade talks for now? It seems like they are trying to create a little bit of an olive branch in Miami.
This feels strongly like a situation that they tried like hell to trade him and couldn't. And now they have to repair everything, because not only did he wreck things at the end of last season and then made it worse a little bit in the offseason, but then the organization took the steps to try to actually remove themselves from him and couldn't, at least couldn't with any kind of degree of sanity. And now they do have to sort of at least patch, let alone repair whatever they can for one more season, because this is a full guarantee. Now, could they pay this down? Because he's still sitting on a $10 million base salary, right? They didn't restructure this full base salary. They kind of pinned themselves into things a little bit here. Could they pay down this thing at the trade deadline, or maybe over the course of camp here if there's an injury or two, and still move on from Tyreek Hill? Absolutely. And Tua's words still speak to that. Tua's words tell me this is not a great situation, and it's fluid by all regards. But if we have to roll him out there, I'm going to throw him the ball whenever I can. That's what it feels like to me, that things are still markedly fluid, and they just haven't been able to get the business side of things figured out yet.
Looking at the contract over at Spot Track, there's an out next year. So maybe they just do they just grit their teeth and bear it for one more year, hope to get the most out of him statistically, and then you just cut your losses after that without really losing anything?
I'm going to be a little bit harsh here and say that they have fingers crossed that somebody gets injured over the course of the next 2 weeks and needs a Tyreek Hill for whatever the next year is, because this is absolutely a 1-year contract. This is a more negative version of Jalen Ramsey, which you saw exactly how that worked out. They got a starting player back. They got to move off the contract basically with nothing retained. There was a small, I think, signing bonus retained of like $3 million there. But they really won the Jalen Ramsey side of things, I think, for all intents, because of what they were able to move off of that contract, which was a 1-year deal. They're looking to do the same thing and cut their losses as much as possible. And time is not on their side right now. So I think they're looking for a movement. But if they have to grin and bear it for 1 year, that's all it is. It's a 1-year contract.
Another wide receiver that's in the headlines, Terry McLaurin, the lone commander who won't show up for training camp. McLaurin is seeking a $30+ million deal per season. He's entering his age 30 season, but the Commanders are in line to compete for a Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
So it feels like he does have a little bit of leverage, just in the sense that Washington doesn't really want to rock the boat. This is a weird time to throw a guy out on the trade market and shake things up for your second-year quarterback who already looks like he's elite. If you want to be as competitive as you intend to be this year, and they've clearly invested in that, locking up Terry McLaurin and keeping him happy and quiet for right now feels like a pretty good move. So is that something that he might be able to capitalize on, just given the timing of their window, which feels like it's open?
You asked me a pretty poignant question on your radio show this week regarding this topic, which was, do the Commanders actually need Terry McLaurin? I don't know. I'm not sure on that. Certainly they want that kind of veteran experience player available for Jaden Daniels, but they did bring back Zach Ertz. They did bring in Deebo Samuel, who probably can't give him 18 weeks, but they're hoping for at least 75% of that. And they do have young speedster talent. you still want a player like McLaurin in the mix there. So they should be paying this guy. They should be doing right by him, maybe even offering a little bit of back pay for things that have gone wrong over the past couple of seasons with this organization, if you want to add that to the piece of pie. But if they don't need him, he's a phenomenal training camp trade candidate. Phenomenal for one of these up and coming teams like a Carolina, like a New England, who have quarterbacks that they think are, about to hit, but still have some value. Maybe even for a team like Houston that, might not have Tank Dell and did kind of reshape their weapons over the last 18 or 24 months. I'm not going to rule that out here, because it sure does seem like McLaurin is willing to stick away from this team. And Washington may be asking themselves the exact question you asked me right now, which is, do we really need this guy? And do we need this guy on 75 to 80 million guaranteed over the next 2.5 seasons? And if the answer is no, get yourself some draft picks for 2026 and really get yourself a sweet situation, both from a draft asset standpoint and from a roster construction standpoint for 2026.
I appreciate your appreciation for the question. I'm not sure that I actually believed those words coming out of my mouth. I just thought
being a radio guy.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it made for a good question, but I do think the thing that I worry about for Washington, if they move off of him, yes, they still have weapons. Deebo Samuel helps a lot. Deebo's new to the offense. Terry McLaurin isn't. Jaden Daniels was awesome last year. He's still a second-year quarterback. Continuity, chemistry is going to matter a lot for this team. Moving off of McLaurin, even if you bring in somebody else who's talented, I don't think is the best move for them. Now, I did think of an idea as you're rolling through some of these teams and options out there. What if we marry our last two topics here?
No way.
No way. They just swap wide receivers. The Dolphins get someone that's a little bit more serious and professional. The Commanders get somebody that can help you win right now. Okay. And it's on a 1-year rental deal. Let's see if we can do it. And if it doesn't work, you're gone. How about that?
You're gonna be surprised with how I answer this. It would be a phenomenal move for the Washington Commanders, in my opinion, because of all the things we're talking about here. Miami can't do this. Miami has to be in the mode of we might be really bad, and when we're bad, we have to start absolutely pillaging this roster and certainly our financial books. So bringing in McLaurin, 31 years old, and then having to give him a 2-year guarantee or a 3-year guarantee is completely counterintuitive to where I think they have to understand they may be headed in the next 12 months. So yes, for Washington, heck no for Miami in that move.
Okay, so maybe the swap, not so much, but if we're looking at if the Washington and Terry McLaurin aren't able to come up with a deal, they send him somewhere else, and then you're able to replace him with a guy like Tyreek Hill. You're saying the Dolphins are waiting for an injury. This could be the exact situation that they're able to pounce on. So maybe it's not about you obtaining talent, especially talent that you would have to pay, but finding a team that feels like they have that sense of urgency. It feels like Washington has that urgency about them that they realize we've got that elite quarterback on a rookie deal. We have to try and make this happen right now.
They should. And I think their move for Deebo and a couple other moves this offseason certainly signified that they understand exactly where things are right now.
Yeah.
They have to understand Jaden's going to take at least a tiny step back here just based on, 25, 30 years of history. But yeah, there's no question that they're going to have their feelers out there, not just now, but especially at that trade deadline if they smell blood and they think they can really be a contender in that NFC.
The Bengals continue to drag their feet. Now Joe Burrow is speaking out about it on behalf of Trey Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart, their first-round pick. Obviously, disappointing is the words that he chose to use. You want to have all of your guys out there on day one to build that cohesion. Is this now an even bigger issue that the captain of the team has decided to speak out on it?
I don't know, because I feel like he did do this with T. Higgins too, right? I mean, he's done this before. There were a lot of people just kind of assuming he's going to walk up to the mic and say, this is business, and everybody's got to go through their own business. And he was a little bit more polarizing than that. So I was somewhat happy to see that, because this is a stand for players in both regards. You can take both sides of Shamar Stewart either way. You can put your foot wherever you want in that side, in that stance. But the second that he breaks down and gives into this, it becomes the new trend for the Bengals draft picks going forward. He is literally holding off changed contract language for every single first-round pick for the Bengals under this administration going forward. So I get it. But at the end of the day, is the language that he's contending with, which is basically if you screw up, we can void your guarantees, pretty standard stuff. Is that a hill worth dying on before missing your first training camp and maybe some first regular season games, and then not accruing a league year in year one of to get yourself the payday in year 4? There's a lot of reasons to kind of cave if you're Shamar Stewart. So that one I get. Trey Hendrickson should not cave. He should be staying away from the organization until one of two things happen. They give him the multi-year guarantee, because it sounds like it's been a 1-year guarantee and that's it in the offers, or they are talking seriously about trading him to a good team, to a team that he wants to go to where he can get paid and win a Super Bowl in 2025, because he has done right by them for now 3 full seasons, including taking haircuts, taking small little pot sweeteners in his contract, incentive-based stuff. He has given in to them too many times. He should not be giving in this time. And if that means leaving before August 1st and heading to a different team, I think so be it at this point.
Bengals are going to bangle. I love what we're seeing out of Cowboys training camp. Jerry Jones just cannot detach himself from microphones. And Micah Parsons, to his credit, has shown up. And he says that he's shown up not for Jerry Jones. He's showing up for his teammates. He said, quote, "I want to be here. I've always said I want to be here. But at the end of the day, they sign the checks and we'll see what they do." So how do you feel about the way this has been handled? And I mean, it all feels very Cowboys. It's driving the headlines. Everybody's got their opinions and their one-liners here.
At this point, because this is like iteration 5 of this, right? I threw a tweet out this week that basically said, all of the top, I think 4 or 5, the top 4 contracts on the Cowboys books right now were signed in September, late August, late July, early September, respectively, over the past 3 off seasons. So this is not new. We know this is how they operate. I just can't wrap my head around why they operate this way. I've heard some, silly reasoning that, Jerry's just trying to save up as much cash over the summer as possible before he has to dump it all in the escrow. I don't know. I get that he's not the richest owner in football, right? He's doing this kind of on his own. Many organizations have added tons and tons of corporations to their ownership bill. So he is sort of operating singularly versus a lot of other franchises. But I don't know. Does he just really love this July, August training camp aura, that he can put these contracts out in? And I don't know.
Seems like it.
Here's why Mike is being a good soldier. He is doing everything right. He's saying everything right. He's showing up. He's going to go through his full work. And it's a little bit easier to do that with like a $24 million guaranteed 5th-year option. Plus, I would imagine, I haven't seen the contract, but a pretty decent insurance policy on that forthcoming contract. So he's secured himself, and that's why he can be as flippant as he's been. But at the other end of the spectrum for Micah Parsons is he's got to do nothing to ensure that he's going to get exactly the contract he deserves, which is at least $42 million a year and at least $125 million of full guarantees. Those are the barometers. That's the baseline. And quite frankly, because of the age he is, and age has been a massive swing in all sports recently. We've seen the baseball contracts for Soto and for a few others. We're going to see it again for Kyle Tucker this offseason. When you're 1 to 2 years younger than most players who hit the market or hit the time for a contract, the numbers explode. So like it did for Bosa in San Francisco, which was a super late extension, I don't think he's going to baseline reset the market. I think Micah Parsons might destroy the market, and Jerry Jones just wants to find the perfect time to send out the largest, by far, NFL contract for a non-quarterback in the history of this league. I think it's going to be explosive. We should just start looking at the calendar to which day makes the most sense, because we're talking 45, maybe even 46 to 48 million per year, and of what could be a total of 150 million of practical guarantees. That's what Micah Parsons should be seeking at this point in time, because he owns 105% of the leverage, just like Dak Prescott did, who obliterated the quarterback numbers when he signed his contract. That's where we are with Micah. So he should be saying all the right things right now.
First day of the NFL season is September 4th. That Thursday, they open up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe that Wednesday, Wednesday, September 3rd. That feels like if I'm predicting dates, I think I might roll with that one. Second round guarantees are coming in for NFL draftees. It has shifted the landscape for second round pay and these players entering the NFL. Is there still more to be done there? By my count, there's 5 draft picks that remain unsigned. What are you seeing out there in regards to the second round pick situation that seems to be wrapping itself up?
Yeah, the one big one is Quinshon Judkins. That's gonna take a minute because of all the things we know about already. But just in terms of these guarantees, I do have some pretty decent actual final numbers. I'm still waiting on a bunch of the mid-round guys in that second round, but we get all the way down to Tyler Shuck, number 40 overall, as I kind of predicted, with the 100% guarantees. Everybody from 33 to 40, not named Quinshon Judkins, got a 100% guarantee over their 4-year second-round contract. That's all historic stuff. We've never had that in the second round. And then the next two guys, TJ Sanders in Buffalo and Mason Taylor, a tight end for the Jets, got over 90% of their 4-year contract guaranteed. So it's really good stuff. By the way, we're talking jumps up from like mid 50% into the 80s, 90s, and 100% for these players early in the second round. So it's a huge swing. Now, the question isn't, does this hold? Because it will hold, just like I mentioned with Shamar Stewart and the language becoming a trend. This will become a trend. Now we got to start talking about third rounders, right? We got to start talking about the early third round picks who, as you know, many of them become day one starters at their respective positions because of how this thing sort of shakes out. When will those numbers start to go from 30 to 40% of that third year salary to full 3-year guarantees and maybe a touch of the fourth year as well? This thing's only going to get better and better on this rookie wage scale, and I'm for it. I think most of this rookie wage scale should be locked in because it is just the best value in all of sports. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and these guys, it's not like they're not used regularly, as you mentioned. Let's get to our quick hits to wrap today's episode. NFL teams are raking in the dough. We know that. The Packers' share of their annual revenue was released since they are publicly owned. It gives us a glimpse into what teams are pulling in across the league. $432.6 million distributed to each of the 32 NFL teams. It means that the league shared more than $13 billion in revenue from the previous fiscal year. Pretty incredible what these teams are bringing in. A nice little glimpse into just how gigantic these numbers are.
Yep. And we're talking about a situation where I think it was a 30 million per team jump over 2024 to 2025 in terms of what the share was. If that's the case, is the salary cap going up enough? That's the first thought I had. Is it going up enough? Because if we're only going up about 12 to 15 per year, I'm not sure it's enough right now, Brandon. I know percentage-wise, it seems to make sense. It's been in line or a little bit higher than where it's been before, but I do think that we're in a situation right now where the Players Association, well, let me step back from that. Maybe it's the wrong time to be bringing this up with the Players Association, but once that all gets sorted out and there's actually some executive ownership in that association as we approach negotiations for the next CBA, if this is the kind of revenue that's being spit out to even the smaller market teams, we should talk about some serious jumps in the salary cap, which percentage base should mean all of these players, even the middle class, get a little bit of a pay bump.
Yeah, salary cap right now sitting at $279 per team. Pretty extreme, but not as extreme as the number that's being brought in. So I know that you guys detailed Scotty Scheffler's big win on Monday's podcast, but I'm curious if you've taken the dive into how he compares to Tiger Woods from a career earnings standpoint. I have the numbers. So you tell me, is this something that you have already looked at? Scotty has made $163 million playing golf alone. Do you know how that compares to the greatest of all time?
I know that. So we're talking about all in, right? We're talking about like all the bonuses, all the playoff stuff, right? And then Tiger's been
anything that's on the course, but related to golf. So basically eliminating sponsorships.
Yeah, but that player empowerment stuff is in there too, right? Which Tiger's
kind of well, I mean, you tell me, because I pulled this from your website. It's the career earnings portion of their pay.
So he's 29 years old, and I think he's third, right? You think he's right in the mix with this Tiger and Rory situation that's been going back and forth for a while now. And I expect if he runs through this playoff, like a lot of golfers expect he's going to do, he's going to jump ahead of Tiger Woods at 29 years old, which is insane.
What's really insane
is he there already?
That he has already done it. Scotty's at $163 million career earnings on the golf course with all of those things included. Tiger Woods is at 154.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I mean, that's just it's the jump in pay and how much these guys are making, and it's Tiger setting the stage for the Scotties of the world. But Scotty has already accomplished that. So in the spot track world, Scotty Scheffler is the new GOAT.
Can I give a quick shout out here?
Please.
Which is very unlike me. Shout out to Live Golf for putting the pressure on this. I don't like it. I don't like to watch it. I think it's weird. I don't think the players are having any fun over there. But they made a boatload of money, and they put a ton of pressure on the PGA to get their act together, and they have. And that's why Scotty Scheffler is a very, very rich man right now.
Yeah, I mean, these signature events, we're seeing these purses that you're winning $4 million if you win an event that's not even a major. You're 100% right about that. Let's get to our Bettor Edge bet of the week. Only 5 games on the Major League Baseball slate. My O's get us started, but that's in a couple of hours, so maybe we'll go deep into the evening. I was leaning towards the Athletics tonight, taking on the Astros. I'm just sort of, in my mind, I know. Well, I said, then I started doing some more digging, and Severino, who's been much better on the road than he has been in Sacramento, has still been pretty bad over his last 5 starts. So I don't know that I can take the dive on that, but I am all in on the Mariners to potentially win the AL West. So I'm looking for different ways that I can get there. The Astros losing would be one of the best ways to do that. But I don't know. I'm not feeling super confident on that. So I've got another look. I think the Cardinals may have screwed themselves up mentally with that shutout against the Colorado Rockies. So I'm in on the Padres tonight with you, Darvish, on the mound.
Ooh, it's Darvish.
You're willing to go the other way.
So I've got to take either the Cardinals or the A's. Is that my option? If you're really adamant about taking the Houston Astros, I'll let you have it, and I'll just lean into the A's. But originally, when I started looking at what do I want to bet tonight, the A's were the first look for me, but I don't think I can get there. Okay, I'm gonna play Homer, and I'm gonna say I know he's been a dumpster fire since leaving my town, but I'm gonna ride the Luis Severino former Mets train, and I'm gonna take the A's at Houston to wreck some momentum that those Astros have had in the division and the American League, and it's going to force them to be even more aggressive at the trade deadline. I love it.
This is great. This is called hedging your bets, because I want the Astros to lose, but I'll win the bet if they don't. This episode has been presented by Bettor Edge. Sign up, try it out, and bet with your friends. Bet with us over at bettoredge.com or on the Bettor Edge app. Just use the promo code SPOTTRACK at sign up for $20 upon your first arrival. Do us a favor, subscribe and rate the pod that you're enjoying right now. And make sure you check out SpotTrack.com for all of the latest in the sports contractual world. Major League Baseball trade deadline next week. So we'll give you a full update on that next time around. See you then.
See ya.